now it's time for something a little more substantial on ASJ Doctor Who. First of all, sorry, I'm aware that I keep lapsing into these periods of barely uploading anything to this channel in particular, and when I do upload it's like 20-second little fan edits of things. I do apologise for that. You do have to keep in mind I am working on the fan audios and the fan series in the meantime, so there is work going on for this channel behind the scenes. It's just taken a while to, come to fruition. We all good? Okay, let's go. Anyway, so this video. So this time around, I'm going to have a go at ranking all of the regeneration stories. Now, this isn't quite the same as ranking the regenerations themselves, which I did a while back. I did in November for the anniversary, actually. That video was ranking the actual regeneration, scenes themselves and what led up to them, etc. This is going to be ranking the stories or episodes that just so happen to be regeneration episodes, really. It's ranking more the episodes themselves, which just so happen to feature the Doctor regenerating, rather than the actual regeneration scenes. So, before we start, a few rules to mention. TV regenerations only, so this really only means I won't be counting the 6th Doctor's regeneration from Big Finish's The Last Adventure. So yeah, unfortunately, we are counting Time and the Rani as 6th regeneration story, so that's going to be on the list. And I'm also not going to count the 10th Doctor's first regeneration from The Stolen Earth / Journey's End. That's all the rules. So, worst to best, number 13. Here we go. Now, at the bottom of the list, it's Night of the Doctor, the minisode that reintroduced Paul McGann back in 2013 and then promptly got rid of him again. It's not that I don't like it. It's honestly a miracle that we had the 8th Doctor come back to TV, even if it was just for a 6-minute minisode like this. It's brilliant that that happened, and I will forever be grateful for Stephen Moffat or whoever the hell was responsible for this thing existing. You have my gratitude, good sir, or madam. But I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a bit greedy, but I think because it is just a mini episode, yeah, I prefer it when it's like an actual full Doctor Who episode that I can really get stuck into watching. Part of me is grateful for 8 returning in this minisode. Part of me is also kind of disappointed that it is a minisode. I'm sure we could have had Paul McGann be in the actual 50th anniversary instead of having his own minisode like this. Would that have really been a problem? But yeah, regardless, we got Night of the Doctor. It is really good for what it is, but because it's just a minisode and it's just a quick little thing, it kind of is just there to bridge the gap between Paul McGann and John Hurt's regeneration. And again, it's not that I don't like it, it's just I just wanted more, really, from Paul McGann's return. But at least we got an official regeneration for him, so that's good. Number 12, it's Time and the Rani. Yeah, most people probably knew when I mentioned Time and the Rani earlier that it was going to be quite low down on the list. Now, as a story itself, I quite like it. I probably like Time and the Rani a lot more than most people, to be honest. It's pretty fucking campy and stupid in places. There's a lot of decisions that just don't make sense in it, but at the very least I can kind of enjoy it at face value for just being a silly Doctor Who story, and it does introduce the 7th Doctor. However, where it does fall flat in this particular context that we are talking about today in this video, in case you couldn't tell, the regeneration of 6 into 7. Now, understandably, because Colin Baker was actually fired from the role as the Doctor, he refused to come back to film the regeneration, so what we got was Sylvester McCoy in a rather naff blonde curly wig with a wibbly effect on his face, and yeah, that's how we got the regeneration from 6 to 7. Now, I'm sure if I was counting The Last Adventure in here, then 6's regeneration would be a lot higher. The regeneration story that took place in, which I guess would be Time and the Rani combined with The Last Adventure. I guess that's how I'd count it, I don't really know, to be honest. Time and the Rani, decent story for me personally, I quite enjoy it, but the regeneration aspect of it, which is why I'm ranking it on for this particular video, is kind of naff, so yeah. Next one. Alright, number 11, we got TV movie, and this is another one that fans tend to shit on quite a bit, some more than others, and personally I'm one of the people that do still quite enjoy it. Like, my introduction to Doctor Who was like the Eccleston Tennant era. I watched a couple series of that, and it wasn't really that long at all before I'd started watching classic Doctor Who reruns on TV channels that used to do them back in the day. And the TV movie is one of my oldest memories of delving into classic Who as a kid back in the late 2000s sort of time period. I do have a fair bit of nostalgia for it, and my love for the 8th Doctor has just grown immensely since listening to Big Finish as well, and 8 is easily one of the best things about the TV movie. Paul McGann is probably the best thing about the whole thing. As a Regeneration story, it's okay. The circumstances of how 7 got killed and turned into 8 are kind of anticlimactic given 7's character. But I think the reason it's as low down as it is because I'm ranking these as Doctor Who stories first and foremost, that just so happen to feature Regenerations. The TV movie, while I enjoy it and it's got an incredible Doctor in it, it's one of the least Doctor Who feeling stories that Doctor Who's ever made. It's the age-old complaint of the TV movies, oh, it's too Americanised, it doesn't feel like Doctor Who. And yeah, while I don't entirely disagree with Americans having a larger involvement in the show, yeah, Doctor Who, it is a British show first and foremost, and a fair bit of its charm and its appeal does come from the fact that it is this campy little British show that does occasionally elevate itself into mainstream status every now and again. And of course the sun goes away. Sorry if the lighting goes a bit shit throughout the video, that's the weather you have to thank for that. So yeah, I'm not opposed to Americans being more involved in the show, as long as they don't forget what made the show unique in the first place. I don't know, I'm not saying it can't be done. So far, history has taught us that things don't go too well when Doctor Who get handled largely by American hands. These things. The TV movie Torchwood Miracle Day, for example, largely haven't been very successful in that regard, and I'm going to put my lights on because this is getting pretty dark now. So yeah, TV movies on the list, in the spot that it is currently in, because while I do still enjoy it like I do Time of the Rani, it strays a bit far from what Doctor Who really is. And let's get on to number 10, which is The 10th Planet, William Hartnell's last story, the first ever Regeneration story actually. Now, like all my ranking videos, or most of them, I put the options into Preference Revealer, and that's what I use to help me, put them into the different spots, because I'm dumb and I can't figure it out for myself. And I'm kind of surprised 10th Planet ended up quite as low as it did, because I do quite enjoy it. Introduction of Regeneration as a concept, introduction of the Cybermen, departure of William Hartnell from his regular era. But I think the only reason that it is as low as it is, I think that's because it does drag a bit. Like a lot of 60s Doctor Who, I really enjoy it, but then it's also drag a little bit around parts 3 and 4, and then sort of picks up in the last couple of minutes when the regeneration happens, if you ask me. It's kinda, meh, I don't know. It might just be me, but that's just how I feel about it personally. Nevertheless, really good story though. Of course it was a big milestone in the show's history for a few reasons. Well, it is what it is. Number 9, we've got The End of Time, 10th Doctor's Regeneration story. I'm going to admit, I've not watched this episode in years. And I mean years. Yeah, I don't know what it is about this one. It's a good story. I like it, I remember liking it. But I don't know, for some reason, every time I go back and watch, it just kind of comes out feeling a bit meh to me. I don't know what it is. Like, The End of Time for me, it just does make me feel a bit meh, like it could have been more. Yeah, it's okay, honestly. I think a lot of it comes from the whole bit at the end. It's really drawn out. If anyone's even slightly familiar with The End of Time, then you know what I'm talking about. I just never really felt that strongly about it, to be honest. Although it is cool seeing Rassilon come back, and some of the music's pretty cool in it, and I like Wilf, but that's about it, really. Number 8, we got The Time of the Doctor, the next Regeneration story along from The End of Time. This is 11's final story. Yeah, I liked it a bit more than The End of Time, anyway. Do I agree with the accusation that this is incredibly chock full of stuff that could have easily been an entire series and it was all crammed into about an hour? Yeah, I think it does overreach itself on multiple occasions. It doesn't really provide a clear explanation for the whole Matt Smith story arc. And as a Regeneration story, I think it's pretty decent. It gives the 11th Doctor a nice sort of heroic way to bow out at the end. But for me personally, I'm not too keen on the Moffat Regenerations as a whole. Yeah, I don't know, they feel a bit too grandiose and a bit too much like they're trying to force a big monumental emotional reaction from the fans and all that lot. Like, I think with Regenerations, the way you get a really good one is you've got to try to find a line between undercooking it and overcooking it to the point where it becomes a huge soap opera-esque moment. Oh fucking, you know what I mean, okay? I'm too illiterate to run a YouTube channel. I don't know why I keep trying. Number 7, we've got The Day of the Doctor. This one is the War Doctor's Regeneration. Now, this is practically right in the middle of the list, which goes against my regeneration ranking video when I said the War Doctor's Regeneration was my least favourite of all of the Doctor's regenerations. So you're probably wondering to yourself, hang on, what the hell are you talking about, Jake? Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't really know. I've got no explanation for this either, to be honest. Day of the Doctor, I think, was pretty good. I haven't really watched it in a fair few years, like End of Time, but I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. As a 50th anniversary celebration, do I think it failed to deliver on some aspects and wasn't as grand as it should have been? Yeah, I do think that to a certain extent, but they only had 70 minutes to tell this story. And I think given the time slot they had and just how massive the Whoniverse is, with a massive celebration and an anniversary special like this, they did about as well as they could have done, really, to be honest. I think with Day of the Doctor, I'm having to look at it from two different angles here. I'm having to look at it from a 50th anniversary standpoint and from a Doctor's regeneration standpoint. As the 50th anniversary special, it was about as good as it ever could have been. And as a regeneration story, I think it's a nice end to the War Doctor. Kind of weird that his first full story is his last one, but I guess if I go back and listen to Big Finish and maybe read some of the books or whatever it is they've done with the War Doctor in the years since, maybe I'll appreciate it even more than I do now. Number 6, we have The War Games, Patrick Troughton's last story. I've always really liked the War Games. Being 10 parts long, that does tend to put some people off, and some people even use that as one of their biggest arguments against this story. And yeah, I get it, long stories aren't for everyone, some people don't like it as a whole. But me personally, I really like this one. I particularly like really long Doctor Who serials from the classic era that you can really get invested in. Like Night of the Doctor, it's hard to get invested in a 6-minute mini episode, basically. And I feel like with a lot of modern Doctor Who as well, because the episodes are over within about 43 minutes on average, I find it hard to get invested in those particular stories as much as I do in, say, Inferno, which is 3 hours long, 7 episodes, or The Seeds of Doom, a 2.5 hour long 6-part story. Not everyone likes long stories, they find them boring and hard to get into, but I'm like the opposite. I prefer it if it's longer because it's more stuff to get invested in, like more time to spend watching this than taking care of any responsibilities that I have in the real world. But yeah, as a whole, I really like the War Games. It's this big epic 10-part episode. The plot and the stakes I think are really high, if a bit convoluted on the villain's part, but I tend to gloss over that because I'm a bit of a fanboy for this episode. And the regeneration itself in part 10 dovetails nicely into the Pertwee era. Yeah, all in all I quite like the War Games, so what? Number 5, we've got Planet of the Spiders. This is the third Doctor's last story. I've heard kind of mixed opinions on this one. I think I've heard more positive than I have negative, and personally I'm on the side of the positives. Planet of the Spiders I really like, even if the spider effects are a bit naff. The 8 Legs as villains I feel work pretty well as one-offs. I know they've appeared elsewhere in like Big Finish and stuff, but I can understand why they never became a particularly iconic Doctor Who villain beyond this story, really. And from my point of view, I see this as a really brilliant third Doctor story. It's got action, it's got that 12-minute long vehicle chase that takes up the second half of episode 2, which is brilliant. And if you watch my regeneration ranking video, I can't remember exactly where I put it, but the third Doctor's regeneration itself is, I think it was among my favourites. And it just so happens that the serial that it comes at the end of is also bloody brilliant. So yeah, there you go. Number 4, it's Twice Upon a Time, 12th Doctor's last story. The first and the 12th Doctor meet, 2 of my favourite Doctors, what's not to love? Okay, yeah, they didn't quite nail the first Doctor's characterisation completely. I'll just overlook that, but I love how this dovetails into the first regeneration as well, and I really like it. I don't really know what I can say about this one other than I like it. I just like it. It's nice to see a regeneration story in particular with no real threat as such. It's more of a character piece than a plot piece, which is kind of rare for Regeneration episodes, because all of them, barring this one and Night of the Doctor, have had some kind of big villain to fight, whereas in this one, while it does appear to be that way at first, it is actually just this alien thing trying to help people in a way, or do some good, and the Doctor misunderstands it, and yeah, the whole episode just ends up being a nice little character piece overall. Okay, number 3, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, Nine's last story. This is my third favourite, so we're in the top 3 now. Once again, referring back to my Regeneration ranking video, this is my favourite Regeneration as a whole, Nine's Regeneration. Yeah, Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways, it's just a brilliant story. The Daleks taking over the game station, trying to, what else, wipe out planet Earth, because when did they not? One of the best handled Dalek encounters in the modern series. Brilliant end for 9, and yeah, it helps that it's got my favourite Regeneration in it, but the story as a whole is also pretty brilliant. So yeah, number 2, Logopolis. All I can say about this one, Four's Regeneration, I absolutely love it. I love it that it's like a sort of culmination of themes and little plot points that we've been given throughout season 18, and it all sort of comes together in this one, and it's just brilliant. The Regeneration is brilliant, iconic, love the Master. This is Anthony Ailing's first full story as the Master, and the whole story, I really love it. In a way, this is kind of as close to a modern Who Regeneration, the classic Who, ever got. It does feel like quite a new Who sort of Regeneration. There's like this foreboding and foreshadowing that takes place throughout the whole story up until the end, and that's a very modern Doctor Who thing to do, and this is the only time the classic series ever really did something like that. Not even Kaiser Androzani did that. Speaking of which, number 1, Logopolis, by the way, really like it. Obviously it's at number 2. Brilliant, but now it's time to talk about number 1, the Kaiser Androzani. What is there to say about the Kaiser Androzani that hasn't been said a million times before? It is quite possibly the best Doctor Who story ever made. It's not my personal favourite, but it is definitely worthy of being ranked up that high, I'd say. It's a very unique episode. Okay, to be fair, everyone knows about Kaiser Androzani at this point. Everyone should know about it. So I'm not going to talk all that much about it, because whatever I have to say has more than likely been said before, and probably a lot better. I'll just give you the Cliff's Note version. 5's Regeneration, most heroic Regeneration, possibly, one of, at least. Brilliant roster of bad guys in this story. Almost every character is a villain in some way. Absolutely brutal events happen in this story. Very eerie and depressing tone, which is, it just really fits the entire thing really well. You know, the Kaiser Androzani, with the music and the tone and a lot of the other aspects, it really does feel like a medieval funeral for the 5th Doctor. That's what this story is. The Kaiser Androzani is a literal medieval funeral for an incarnation of the Doctor. That's what it is. Easily number 1 best Regeneration story of all time. I don't need to try and explain it because you all know why. Most of you have probably seen it, hopefully, and yeah. So it's been a little while since I recorded one of these, so that probably counts for my terrible presentation of my thoughts. Well, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Fun game now. Leave your own list in the description below, or maybe your top 3 or top 5 Regeneration stories, or just your favourite one. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.